Howdy ho, friends and foes, and welcome to Dad's on Life, an episodic show about parenting from a male perspective. I'm your host, Jay Miles, and with me, as always, are my co-host, Keith Bogan.
Top of the morning to you. That was terrible. That
was Doug Hamadike.
Good morning.
And Chad Holloway.
Hello.
Today, I'm actually going to let Keith introduce the topic because this was his idea, and he'll be able to explain it better. I'm still not 100% sure what exactly this is about, but go ahead, Keith. The floor is yours.
Oh, you're assuming I pay attention to even the things that I say. Very good. Thanks for I was off on the rabbit hole of when do we influence our children on possible career paths, and when do we stop influencing them and let them go on their choices, if you will. And I was thinking about it because I so frequently encounter kids in drum corps, for instance, who have these bad relationships with their parents because my parents want me to be a doctor, but I want to be a music teacher, which is frequent in drum corps, as a matter of fact, or, you know, something like that, where, or they want me to be they want me to be a lawyer, but I want to be a business major or something like that. Just where the kids don't necessarily agree, and it causes a lot of friction between parent and child. I've been very blessed in that area because when Justin was young, I was like, oh, well, he'll play center field for the New York Yankees and be a multimillionaire, whatever. But then reality sets in pretty quickly, and we never really told either one of our kids what direction would be good. They both very naturally found what they wanted to do. Justin wanted to be an accountant since the time he was like in 6th grade, because I think he was modeling after his uncle Ed, who is my ex-wife's brother. Jeremy has been a freak for video games, and since an early age was like computer science, gaming theory, all that. And both of them they'll both do very well in careers that they apparently both enjoy a great deal. But I've seen so many kids who definitely differ, and their parents are not only forcing them into choices of majors and stuff for education, but also they'll threaten to withhold funding if they won't pay for college, they won't do this, they won't do that, and I just found that very interesting. So I thought it might be an interesting topic to go down the path of.
Well, I'm actually, for me, it's kind of, I'm along the lines of where Keith is, I can't fathom anything they could come and say that they wanted to do, pretty much, that I'm going to sit there and not support them. I mean, there are certain things, but yeah, I personally just, they'll find their own way of what they want to do. If we need to guide them, it's one thing, you help them a little bit, but it's only going to be to encourage them, and not to really, maybe, like I said, just guide them, not to seriously like say, oh, you can't do that. No, that's not the way we are. So
I go back to, for me, I want to talk about my kids, but I also go back to my own experience and whether or not my parents did the right thing, which I'm not sure they did. When I was in high school, when I was growing up, I was the favored child. I could do no wrong. They let me do anything I want and blame my brothers for it. But then, as the last
kind of like you are in this group,
right? I am the favored child, and I constantly misbehave, and the only one who gives me crap is Jason, so it's okay, So toward the end of high school, I was the only child in the house, and when that happened, I was also the only one who could be doing wrong things. And so I I was the favorite child and the least favorite child at the same time because I was the only child at that point. But I started to rebel against the only discipline, I guess you could call it, that I really faced in my upbringing. And part of the rebellion was I didn't want to go to college. I was like, screw college. My brother Joel, who I was pretty close with, I lived down in Austin, Texas. I'm going to go live down near him. So Joel actually gave him $200. He rented an apartment for me right next to his. And I was all set to go down there. I had applied to a bunch of schools I knew I couldn't get into. So that college wasn't an option. And my parents kind of was just letting it happen. And the plan was for me to get in a car or fly down to Austin and just start living down there a month or two after high school. And serendipity walks in, and the reason I didn't go, as we've talked about before, was that was my father died 11 days after my high school graduation. So I sort of reversed course and like, oh, I have to take care of mom. I'm going to stay home. But I was on a course of living in the gutter, basically. I had no money. I wasn't being told what to do or pushed in a direction. So and this isn't about me. It's more about, what we do with our kids and what people do now. But I got very lucky. I got very lucky that my kids were like, they had great ideas. What if my kids had said, screw college, I want to go backpack through Europe, but I have no money? Or what if I want to go to college, but I want to be a philosophy major or a social worker, where you spend $150,000 or more on an education with no hopes of ever being able to pay off your loans because you're never going to make the money? What if my kids had been like that? I don't know if I would have felt the same way. So I think, I'm not saying parents are justified in pushing the kids in a certain direction, but it's, I don't have the perspective because I got, my kids chose careers that are going to be rewarding and fruitful and all that. So, I'm just sort of curious about other perspectives in that regard.
Yeah, but and I guess from my perspective, to just kind of back up a little bit and talk about my history, kind of like you explained, because I think that plays a lot into how we respond to our children.
Mhm.
In my family, I was the first one to get a college degree, and my mom, I wasn't a great student in high school, and my mom and my stepdad and my dad were all like, "You're going to college." I mean, there just was no option. You're going to college. And that's what happened. And I mean, there was no even, I might have talked about a little bit like, hey, I'm not going to go, but I was going. So I went to college and kind of found my way there. And, I guess it was probably my last couple of years in undergrad, I became a pretty good student, and I had a faculty member take a liking to me. And so then I was a statistics tutor, and I ran his computer lab, and, he just had all these different opportunities for me. And he said, hey, I think you should go on and get a master's degree. He says, you're a good student, you're attentive, you have great comments, you understand the stuff. He says, we'll see if we can get you some funding. So that's what we did. We got me some funding, finished up my master's degree for free. And then after that, he said, hey, I don't think you're done. He says, you're a real good student. And I was thinking the same, right? So he said, let's figure out where you want to go. So I picked 4 or 5 universities in the University of Miami, which is a private school. There's no way that this Midwest blue collar kid could have gone there on my own dime. It's a lot of dimes. But they promised me, they guaranteed me a 3-year worth of funding. Nobody else did. Everybody else was like only 1 year at a time, dependent upon the funding. But they said, yeah, we'll fund you for 3 years. So I got that, and then I did a postdoc up in Wisconsin. Then I got the second master's degree at WashU, and then I did a fellowship after that. So I was in school until I was like 32, like literally. Like I met somebody the other day who was the first college graduate, and that's where she was as well. She was finishing up her PhD. But for me, it was like I did not have the advice from my parents. So my major was sociology, medical sociology as a graduate student. Then I did the postdoc in mental health services research. Then I got the applied degree in healthcare administration. And so then after that, I take off and I start my career. So my whole thing for my son, for Frankie, was that I didn't want him to go into the liberal arts area. So I said, hey, I said, you can if you want to, but I'm not going to pay for it. I go, it doesn't make sense. And we kind of talked about, it sounds like some of the things that you had contemplated, Keith, like, is it worth it? Like, because if you get this degree in philosophy, but you can't pay off your loans, then why would you go? It has to be something kind of worthwhile from my perspective. And I think that's for life as well. You have to make those decisions. There's a cost benefit on everything that we do. And that's kind of the first way that we looked at that. But now to look at Frankie's course, from the time he was very young, there was no option for him. He's going to college. He wanted to be a doctor for a little bit, not because I said so, but I said, that'd be great. I supported him in everything he said he wanted to do. Oh, that'd be great. That's super. You should do that. Because that's what my grandma did to me. She goes, oh, you can be anything you want to be. So I was talking, I just always come up with all these things. And my grandma was always like, you can do it. You can do it. If you want to do it, do it. And so I was like that with him. But, as we get closer to college, then we had to find a place that he wanted to go. And I looked for a place where he fit in. So we visited probably 5 or 6 universities. But again, there was no question he's going to college. So we visited 5 or 6 schools, and I could tell when we got to ASU, which he was kind of reluctant to visit, he's like, I could just tell a change in his posture, a change in his affect. I'm like, I think this is it. So I'm like, what do you like the best? He goes, Arizona. I like ASU. So that's where he ended up going. And he picked entrepreneurship. And I think that was partly because of me. But then recently, probably in the last 18 months, he said he wants to do some internet security as well. And I'm like, yes, because once he gets to a certain age, once he got to 18, I still give him advice if he wants it, but I'd say my guidance it's a much softer touch, because I'm like, he's a grown man now, but he is, but he's not. We all know, like, he's 18, but still he's young. And I want him to make his decisions. And to your point, Keith, about your parents kind of letting you kind of work through your mistakes, that's kind of where I am with him. I kind of give him soft advice now. And if he comes to me, I'll give him whatever he needs. But so, I'm glad to see that. Now he's starting to make his ways in his junior year. So he was going to do a summer abroad in Prague, but with the stuff in Ukraine, that's not going to work out. So I said, you should probably try to line up something else. Maybe head to South America or get an internship or something like that. So I'm waiting, and I keep reminding him. I said, if you want to do it, you need to do it now. And this was like 3 weeks ago. So, and he's like, oh, I'll get to it. So I think he's waiting a little bit longer than I think I would have, but that's his way of doing things, right? So it's like I said a minute ago, he's 18, he's over 18 now, he's 21. So he needs to make the decisions on his own. But my whole thing was guiding him into a career, something that he would like. But that's going to pay the bills, right? So, but to your point, make your own decisions, and you can pick whatever major is, but if you want me to pay for it, it can't be liberal arts.
But when I was going to go to college, I talked about applying to schools I couldn't get into, but it was for an architecture degree. So my parents I don't remember that clearly because it was about 8,000 years ago, but my parents probably were like, yeah, okay, that's something, if he can get into a school, we'll support that. And there wasn't enough time after it came off the rails and I got rejected by all the schools, because I picked schools I picked Carnegie Mellon. There's no way in hell with my grades I would have gotten in there. There was not enough time between then and when my father passed that I would have been able to adjust to something different. So I wonder if they were thinking, let him go to Austin, let him spend a year wallowing in a gutter, and he'll figure it out, and then we'll get him back on track for the next one. Because my next oldest brother he was in 4-year school, but he had taken a gap year. They'd let him do that. And I wonder if they were treating mine as a gap year to get my head on straight. They're not here. There's no way to ask, but it would have been an interesting conversation.
But even with that, like, I think about other decisions that parents help us to make. and how, my parents had no problem letting me struggle. I mean, I struggled through a lot of things, but I also learned a lot. I was super independent, but that hasn't happened. I mean, I think luckily, we've got enough resources in the house where it's pretty easy. It was pretty easy for Frankie to have whatever he needs, and I didn't want him to go without, right? So I think he's going to be a whole different person, have a whole different personality than I did, kind of, because I had to struggle, and I mean, not that it was that bad, but like if I wanted something, they're like, well, yeah, you can't have it unless you go work for it. So that's the way it was.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
need to do a little more of that with my kids.
yeah. Basically, my family, my dad was a union worker. My mom was a homemaker for quite a while until she had to go to work. So my dad basically for both me and my brother was kind of like, hey, these jobs are opening up at the union. You should get yourself in there. 20 and out, you get your retirement and your benefits and all this stuff. But of course, those days were gone, and he was just talking about his own experience. And we tried at the same company, but obviously those deals were no longer being given, nor were they looking to add people to the union. So, bounce around from a couple different jobs in warehouses and stuff like that. And finally, my wife got me a job where she worked right in the mailroom. And I went from the mailroom right up to production assistant to, running the marketing department, basically, where I am now, 25 years later, you know. But it's interesting because kids are dumb. So that's why we've taken on these jobs as parents to teach these kids. And the only reason why I say that is because we had an interesting life learning moment this week. So I've
Uh-oh.
been very proud of Brendan, going out there and stumbling across his first kitchen job of getting himself down and dirty in a Mexican restaurant, doing dishes and stuff. And it's been great for the past, I don't know, half a year. He's been making his own money and doing quite well at it, 3 days a week working there. And Friday, we got the phone call from Brendan. He quit. Not only did he quit, he just walked out, quit. So,
Right.
I was just
yeah,
say why.
yeah, well, there's lots of backstory and drama, mostly a lot of inappropriate things, which an HR manager of Keith stature would just like throw up his hands and say, "Are you kidding?" Basically, when you have older adults, young adults, and then kids that are still in high school that range in ages of like 14 and 15, like their conversations and how you talk to them and the way you treat them needs to be different. And the people that work there should also be aware of how their professionalism should be different when they are around young, real young kids that are still in high school. Just because they're a job, they're not an adult. So it had to deal with some inappropriateness of the way people were treated by the management. It had to do with a lot of people and their speech and what they were saying to the kids and stuff like that was just totally inappropriate. And he had some issues with just with other people not doing their job and him not being made visible with what he was doing. So he just got fed up and decided to quit. And we went through the whole thing of like, well, this is why you never quit. And you should think before you jump because you can't use that reference now. Well, what do you mean? Well, regardless of what good you've ever done at that job, you cannot say now that call up my boss and tell them because what are they the first thing they're going to say? Hey, he just got up and quit. So we did a lot of explaining why references and how important your jobs are and how you never burn your bridges, no matter how bad it is, and what he could have done to de-escalate, and how a whole bunch of you know, parents together, you know, father to son, mother to son, like information we provided to him. So that was very interesting and very like, wow, us as parents, these are things that we have to explain, and should have or could have I done this before it, or you know, but it was a very interesting evening Friday night.
Oh, this was Friday night. Um, um, we've heard, about, I mean, they're 8 and 11. So we've heard, I want to do this, I want to do that, I want to do that. Basically, for me, the way I started out as in industrial technology, and then ended up in journalism, media studies, with a concentration in broadcast journalism. Unfortunately, in that aspect, a lot of the traditional outlets have dried up, and they were drying up, and it was going to the internet, and it just was a pain to get anything, get a job anywhere at that point. So I decided that I was going to go work for my family, which has had its share of ups and downs as well. But if you want to go collect garbage, go be the best garbage collector you can be. If you want to, that's the way I look at it. I don't. I look at my kids and where they are now, and I honestly didn't know what to expect. So I see things now, and it's mind-blowing to me sometimes, where both of them are at this point, because I see them with some of their friends, and I just kind of, it's eye-opening. Go, oh wow, okay. You make that observation, and you realize, I've kind of seen that if they just keep up on the same path they are, they'll be okay. Because I mean, I know I've seen some cases where both of our friends, their parents pushed them too hard, and the end result was nothing. In some cases, they're still pretty messed up 20-some years later. So there comes a line where you gotta stop pushing, or not push so hard. I mean, Chad, knowing what you do about psychology, you know where I'm going with it. And you, of any of us, probably understand the best of, you can push too hard. So
I would
You're-
hope that at 8 and 11, your daughters still want to be princesses and maybe MMA fighters. I'm not sure which.
no,
Professional
No.
wrestlers.
Yes, exactly.
professional wrestler, yes. MMA,
Good. Glad to hear that. But
is
the
a
point
lot.
is, they still haven't.
Oh, well, wait, let me just tell you, I want to preface that by saying that it's not what people think it is. Some of those people only make about, $5,000 to $10,000 a fight, and they have to pay their people. So they're making shit money, a lot of them. So
Well, if they fight as often as I used to fight with my ex-wife, then they'd make a lot of money.
they don't fight as often. They take a beating. It isn't worth it. But let's say if they were able to do, like there is one, I'll change subject for 1 second. There is a professional wrestler now who is now about to graduate college. He is an Olympic champion, 2-time NCAA wrestling champion, Gable Steveson. And they're like, oh, he should go into, no, he's already said that. First off, he's a diehard wrestling fan, pro wrestling fan. He said, no, I'm not going into MMA because they get hurt a lot easier doing MMA than they do. Yeah, things happen. I mean, somebody tore their shoulder at WrestleMania probably the other night. One tore his quad. Yeah, that happens, but not like it does in UFC or MMA.
Well,
So-
in real wrestling, you're not wrestling in a boxing ring where you can get thrown out of it and fall on the floor 10 feet below.
Oh, no, that is true. That is absolutely 100% true. And that's what I mean. Accidents, things happen, but a lot less in WWE and other wrestling companies than they do in UFC.
But what I was getting at is I hope that your girls at their age are still dreaming of fantasy careers as opposed to accountant or computer science and things like that.
Doctors
Too
and
early
things
to
like
be
that have come
serious.
up.
It's too early to
What
be
is that?
serious. They should be having fun. They should be engaged in all sorts of fun, ridiculous thinking right now, and just enjoying it. And I mean, neither of my sons was thinking their careers at 8, and I don't even think at 11. They were just having fun and not pointing toward, oh, this is what I want to be when I grow up. Justin was certainly at 11 thinking I'm going to be a Major League Baseball player. That didn't last very long, but he was thinking that. Yeah, it's that's why one of the things why this group is so special and why this podcast is really fun for me is, our Frankie's on the cusp of his career, Justin and Jeremy on the cusp of their careers. Your girls, they're in fantasy land, and they should be. And if they're not, I'm scared.
Sorry about that. Well, I'll put it
Very
this way.
nice.
We went to the Franklin Institute yesterday, and there was a Harry Potter thing. Delana took a picture of, I think, everything in the exhibit. I'm not kidding. Everything. It was really, really nice to see. But yeah, but no, I mean, some conversations have turned into realistic mentions of things. If you've ever sat there and had a conversation with Sadie, a lot of it is what she sees on Discovery and things like that. You can see that Sadie, I mean, the way she talks, would probably make a pretty good interior designer. And Delana, yeah, there's been a couple conversations, and I went, yeah, okay. I know where she could end up heading. But but it is no more than somebody at 11 said, I want to be a fireman.
Right.
Because they're still playing firemen, So maybe not 11, but yeah. And I've actually seen some people who have said they want to be firemen and they do end up being firemen. Quite a few actually.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know about you guys, and you were saying about college and all, and how important it is, and it was really important to my wife and stuff. But now I guess we're seeing, well, we all know that we've taken jobs or been in jobs where it's like where I am right now in my career. you know, a lot of the positions we have open say, hey, you need a college degree or whatever. But at the same time, I'm on, you know, I'm like, I could teach this job to anyone, you know, if I really wanted to. And right now, Brendan has gone through many different ideas on what he would like to do in the future and all. But at school, he keeps drawing on his hands. I mean, he's a really good artist and stuff. And we were talking to him about, like, you know, like cosmetic tattooing and all for people, and how that could be like a really big thing in the future. And it doesn't have to be, you know, traditional go to college and stuff, and then find your way through college, that you got a real talent for drawing and stuff. And like my niece and stuff's like, I would definitely take a tattoo. And Heather's girlfriend was like, I would definitely take a design from Brendan and stuff. But we were just saying that there is now a need for people who, you know, uh like cosmetic tattooing, like we were saying. And you know, that it's a real industry nowadays, a real field. And
Yeah, a lot of the there's still a ton of it done for shows and things like that in movies. Yeah, I mean, a lot of that, not a lot of it, but some of it now. I mean, you have these people who are highly tattooed that are in movies, but there are a lot of tattoos that are drawn in for movies and things like that, and TV shows, and it's
yeah, well,
makeup artistry. Yeah,
we're saying even people like with eyebrows and stuff that, you know, have issues with them, that, you know, tattooing on like stuff like that and all.
Mhm.
And
Sure.
yeah, there's a lot of things like that you could do, like beyond just giving tattoos. But yeah, it was interesting conversation. So
Well,
think that
and I think beyond that too, I think now what we're seeing is we're seeing some of the like the technical college things are coming back, you know, like the stuff that has disappeared for a while. Now we're seeing the shop classes come back, and we're seeing some of these other things. And you know, it's one of the things. I sit on the board of a junior college here, or and back in Georgia, and you know, it's kind of helping them decide what they need to put into place to be of utility to the community. You know, what things are needed in the community, and what courses should they offer. So I think now we're kind of, we've discovered we've killed off some of these programs which are very beneficial. So we're returning to them.
And that's interesting, because I think that in one of the places, and I'm sure there were many that where I disagreed with my ex-wife, was the concept of college. I think we both raised our kids on the concept of you're going to college, but it wasn't you're going to college or we're going to beat you to death. It was more like that's what we feel you should do. But I think if one of them or both had come to us and said, I have a different path, I have a lot of trouble visualizing my former wife as being supportive of that. But on the other hand, I probably would have been flexible in that area. Even now, I mean, Jeremy's a sophomore. He's so focused on drum corps and performing arts in the summer times, he doesn't have time for internships. But if he had been doing internships from the time he started college, he might have gotten enamored with the money you can make knowing about programming without a college degree. And who knows if he would have finished college. Still got 2 years left. I wonder if he'll come to me at some point and say, why am I doing this? I could go out and make, 70, 80 grand right off the bat right now anyway. And he probably could. So I'm not expecting him to do that. I think inertia will take him the rest of the way and he'll finish college, because I think he values it just as the credential. But it wouldn't surprise me if he actually came to me and said, take a year off or do this, do that. Now it's marching band at Ohio State University. It's such a prestigious thing to be part of that. I think he doesn't want to take any time off because he really likes doing that, but he doesn't need a college degree for what he's doing. And he knows that. And there's a lot of that out there. By the way, I'm going to throw my own profession under the bus, as I frequently do. Most jobs require that 4-year degree. It's a crock. It's the HR profession and hiring managers in general hiding behind oh, well, let's throw up some reasons why we can decline candidates because we're too stupid to do it, a good thorough evaluation of the candidates ourselves. So we come up with these artificial barriers. Well, oh God, if you finish a college degree, you must be able to finish a project. So that makes you a good candidate. What a crop. You're right. Half the jobs in this country do not need a college degree, but they require it anyway. It's all because people in my profession don't know what they're doing.
Mm. Yep. But I think there's some creeping credentialism, I think is what they call that. Whenever like kind of every year over the course of 20 years, you've probably seen that kind of moving up where you need more and more things to do particular functions, but that's not true. And to your point about programming, I've got a friend who he's a programmer, but he doesn't have a college degree and he makes more than I do. I mean, like I was saying, I was in school until I was 32. he did not go to
Programmers-
school, and he makes a boatload doing this stuff.
Programmers need to continue to educate themselves. They need to continue to learn new languages and broaden their repertoire of languages that they can provide and program in. But that doesn't mean college. That's the certification route and the seminar route, things like that.
Yep.
But the programmers that are going to have successful careers will literally be learning a new language every year on average, if not more quickly than that. There's too many. I know in my career, I've hired a lot of technology people, but the vast majority of them, especially those over the age of 40, learned COBOL and stuff like that, 30 years ago. And then they never learned anything else. And now they're wondering why they're unemployed. Well, that's because you do need to continue getting education. You don't need a degree to show. That's all.
Right. Well, and I guess, and the friend I'm thinking of, he kind of has an interesting position because he understands the programming piece. Not that he does a lot of the programming, but then he's facing the clients. So he kind of interacts. And I think that's a hard job to find qualified candidates because you kind of have to find your stereotypical nerd who's introverted, but you have to find an extroverted nerd, right? Who can explain things and talk to other people. And that's kind of the fence he sits on. And it's been very, very productive for him. The other thing I want to say was, it's interesting to hear us talking about our kids in the United States, but now I've got another couple of kids and one really who's living in my house that I am trying to provide hope for, right? Because I think we've talked some of this stuff about, in Colombia, like it's just from all sides. She was just getting pounded by people saying, "Oh, well, why would you do that?" Just lots of negativity. There's no hope for nothing. And basically, if she stayed there, she'd probably be working for 10 or 15 bucks an hour somewhere, in 10 years. And it's just sad to think about that stuff. But now I'm saying, hey, what are you going to do? Are you going to come here and get educated and then you're going to go back and be president of Colombia? I say that stuff and I'm kidding, but at the same time, I'm trying to get her to think about this stuff, like what can you do to make things better, and to take advantage of the opportunities that you do have, because you do have opportunities here and you need to look at that with a very hopeful vision of who you can be. It's not all things are so bad. You're going to have to clean houses for $10 a day, work like a dog. So things, from that perspective, it's a whole different deal because she's going from way low to potentially way high, in certain respects, just because of the opportunities that she has here. So it's just interesting looking at that comparison.
It's funny, you did the same thing that I did in a very, the words are a lot different, but it winds up being the same thing. By telling her, and correct me if I'm wrong, by telling her you could learn things here and then go back and be president of Columbia, you're basically saying you can do anything.
Yeah.
And one of the stories I love to tell about my boys, they're both bar mitzvah. So at the age of 13, Justin gets his bar mitzvah, and it's traditional for the parents to get up and give a speech at the ceremony. And I got up and, you're wonderful. We're really proud of you, all that sort of thing, in front of like 150 people. And I spontaneously gave him the nickname POTUS, which you all know is President of the United States. 3 years later, Jeremy has his and when I said that, everybody laughs. I'm like, what I'm trying to tell you, and I came right out and said it, is what I'm trying to tell you is you can accomplish anything. So from now on, you're my POTUS. So 3 years later, we go fast forward. How do I match that for Jeremy? In his bar mitzvah speech, I take the name away from Justin, give it to Jeremy, and look at Justin and say, you are from here on CJ SCOTUS, meaning Chief Justice of the Supreme Court, which is the only place you can probably go to get a promotion, I suppose. But so both of them were in the same way. I kind of said, you can do anything and you will accomplish anything you want to. Got a good laugh. It was pretty funny, but it was, it's really funny to hear you say the same thing, in the same way to her about being president of Columbia. That's a great line. I like that.
Yeah, well, but I think a lot of what we do as parents is the whole thing is to give hope, to support them, and like, while they're younger, Jason and Doug understand this part of it. It's like, while they're younger, just say, yeah, that's a great idea. Let's do that. You can be be the princess and and if you want to be the president, or you want to be the CEO of what, or whatever it is that they're saying. And you're like, yes, you can do that. And then we kind of, once they get a little older, kind of moderate that a little bit. I don't even say moderate it, but just continue to support them. But start creating that distance as a parent. That's the hard part for me, is like, because I still want to get in and say, Frankie, what are you thinking? But I'm like, nope, he's on his own now. But he's not on his own. He can always come back to Dad.
Yeah, I guess there's we kind of said about pushing kids too hard, and it's interesting because it's like one of those things where it's like, you want to be on top of your kids, you want to know what they're doing, you want to make sure they're making the right decisions, and that they're going to have a fruitful future. But at the same time, kids need to be kids, and we see some of the neighbors' kids and all, where they're just like, every time that you say, hey, I could think of their names, but I'm just not gonna say them. Can they come out? And they're like, no, they need to study. And just the shutdown time now of kids. And we hear about school rankings and all, and how the American schools, how they hold up or don't hold up to other countries and stuff. And I just mean, at the same time, it's like, I see my kids, they leave when I'm, sometimes when I'm getting up for work, in the morning, and then they don't come home until, I'm ready to knock off, and then they got homework. And I mean, if Colin wants to go out and play at the park, we got to remind him, hey, yeah, you got homework, and we can manage that. How much do you have? What do you need to do? But at the same time, it's also important for that kid to get down to the park, And when we hear that he can't, his friends can't, the kid lives across the street, it's like, really? The kid, like, the kid's been in school all day and all this stuff, and now he's studying, he's got homework to do and stuff, and it's like, geez, so when is the kid a kid, But I mean, different parents, different folks, different strokes, I don't know. But I think it's important to, keep dreams alive and allow them to be kids and all as well. So it's just interesting.
I was on the borderline of being one of those a-hole parents. At least I think I was.
No.
So it's fourth grade. Justin's 9 years old, and he's really good at spelling. So he enters the district-wide spelling bee. I think he won the spelling bee in the school or something like that. So he gets to go to the districts, and he comes in second place. And the first thing I say to my wife at the time was, that's the first good thing we can put on his resume for college. She rightfully looked at me and said, slow down, will you? He's 9, knock it off. I'm like, oh yeah, wait a minute. But I was really thinking stuff like that. I was a little wired back then. Wait a minute, back then? Yeah. Why am I distinguishing?
Well, and we had something similar with Frankie, and where I felt like a bit of a jerk, but he's perfectly capable of making 4.0. But I said, my expectation is that you're going to make a 3.0. I know that you're a lot smarter than that, but I said the amount of studying that you have to do is so much greater to go from that 3.0 to that 4.0. And I said, but I want you to be out doing other things, being a kid, playing in sport, participating in sports, doing those kinds of things. Because I remember this was from a long time ago, but I read a study that the students who got A's in my program they were most correlated to be vice presidents, and the ones who got B's were more likely to be the presidents. And the hypothesis behind that is that they have both kind of they're studying, they're sufficient, they're smart, right, with the B's, but at the same time, they also can read people. And being the leader of an organization or the leader of a group, you need to understand who these people are and be able to assemble good teams and have a good personality to be persuasive and those kinds of things. And that's where you develop those social skills. And I got a buddy who's a perfect example of that. He's super smart, but he got all A's when he was in high school and in college. But he said, to Jason's point, if you want to be a garbage man, be a good one. Well, he was a garbage man, and four of them started a company together. And then he was one of the first four, and they took a public, and his job was to go out and talk to mom and pop garbage companies and to buy them and to bring them into their company. So that's what he did. But he, had this great accounting mind, and was great working with people, and had this great personality, made a ton of money, enjoyed his job. But I mean, it's kind of that mix of both kind of a skill and the social piece of it, but in my case, he was a different story, because I don't think he was even pushed to get to where he was. But in my case with Frankie, it's like, no, I'm not going to be overbearing like that. I want you to have a life as a child.
Mhm. We are actually coming up on a hard stop here. Chad has something that he needs to take care of. Anybody have anything they want to add before we head out of here?
The only other thing that for me was that, and it just follows right up on Chad, drum corps, as I've frequently referred to, what the boys do in the summertime and a lot of time during the school year too, is a very time-consuming activity that also precludes the opportunity to do internships. But we have, and this is both my former wife and I have heavily encouraged drum corps, because it's a whole different activity than simply marching band, and it teaches a lot of life skills, including leadership. So both of my boys are very much like their father. They're consummate nerds. I mean, computer science and accounting, we're all nerds for sure. So by learning, they're not learning leadership or people skills in their classes. They're learning them at drum corps. So they have the opportunity to do what you were talking about, Chad. I love the fact that they went into it, because now that they Justin can look at the partnership track when he goes to work for the Big Six, when he's at KPMG, Big Four, excuse me. What am I saying? Big Six, thinking football. Anyway, because of the well-rounded stuff, Justin played baseball. Jeremy was in robotics, also a nerd activity, by the way. Yeah, he did some sports as well, marching band and all this stuff. They have a much more well-rounded, and they probably could have had slightly higher grades, even though they did very well for it, but they were much better prepared because they spent a lot of time in the extracurriculars. Boy, we can't talk that mantra enough. And that way we are guiding their careers. We're pushing them into other things to make sure they have a very well-rounded background. I think we're doing that with all of our kids. So I'm glad you brought that up, because we know, especially in the town next to us in West Windsor, a lot of the students there don't do anything extracurricular, and all they do is study, and they get magnificent 5.0s because they take all the crazy high-level courses and all that. And the suicide rate is really high over there. And what are they learning to do? They're learning to bury themselves in some ledgers and manipulate numbers, and they'll probably make money, but it's not necessarily as fulfilling for a lot of people. They're going to learn that there was other things they could have been doing too.
Exactly. I agree.
Doug?
No, I'm good. Yeah. Mm.
Chad?
Doug's right on that cusp of his kids starting to look at college. So, and what are their majors going to be if they decide to go to college? So, you know.
His brain's going about 100 miles an hour right now.
Yeah.
Oh, boy.
But the other side of this coin too is it's a really fun process. It's a way to bond with your kids when you start looking at when you start talking about, when you start looking at schools, because the real thing is, I think, when you start going out and you start going to campuses, you know, even if they're local, going out and going to campuses and having lunch and saying, what do you think? And then that's when, as a parent, I started thinking, wow, in a year or so, he's going to be living in this other place where he's going to be starting his life. And that's where you kind of see that the part that, I guess, the part where they leave the nest, right? So you start thinking about that. Well, boy, he's becoming a man now. And, you know, kind of from a parent perspective, gets a little scary. But anyway, and the other thing too is the first day when we dropped him off for college, he actually went early because he had some sort of leadership thing he was doing with the business school. But like, his mom and I both were sitting there looking at him from afar, and he was by himself with his stuff in a different state by himself, walking up to register. And it's just like, oh man, it's just like that was like the defining moment for me, because it's like looking at him and like both of us were teared up. But you know, but he's fine, you know, everything went well. So, but it becomes hard for parents as well. So.
Oh, yeah.
I'm sorry. I was just like thinking really quick. I don't even want to finish this thought, but what I was thinking is something like Keith and Chad were saying, just about also preparing them to like their attitude. Well, not their attitudes, but how to speak and how to, you know, interact with people. And I was just thinking of like Brendan had mentioned, like maybe going forward with like cyber school, maybe for a year of his high school. And I was like, yeah, I don't think, I think that a lot of the drawbacks to cyber school also is, you know, that interaction, that those high school years are important and stuff. And, you know, I don't want to put down cyber school. I don't really know much about it, so I can't really pontificate about it or why he shouldn't or should. But I think that a lot of our social actions and learning how to deal with people, teachers, other students, the different hierarchies in the high school, it all come from that. And I'm not a big person of the cyber school stuff. Anyway, sorry.
That's
It's
okay.
an interesting career.
Yeah, I agree.
I think that pretty much wraps us up for the week here. It basically, we all seem to kind of be on the same path of what we feel like we should be doing or helping our kids do at this point with their lives and things like that. The interesting thing is you have new and different careers coming up still to this day at times with different innovations and things like that. The world keeps moving. So the best thing we really can do is just hope that our kids can adapt and change with everything that's going on. So from all of us here at Dads on Life, take care, everybody.
You have a good week.
Have a good one, guys.
See you soon.